These older games are a lot tougher to grade. Probably because it was the very first game, so there had to have been a lot of trial and error. As I've been repeatedly saying, the Game Boy likely limited a lot of the decisions the developers could make. Think about like cutting things in order to make things fit, the graphics and music being as low quality as they were. So we're only going to be analyzing them from how they play from the Game Boy point of view. I want to bring something to light off the rip. The Pokédex and available Pokemon is probably one of the worst in the series. The absolute imbalance of types is very obvious if you look at the list. The Pokédex is drowning in normal, poison, flying, and water types, but lacks severely everywhere else. There was only one dragon and one ghost type family, and even then they both had a secondary flying type for a Dragonite and poison type for Gengar. And the biggest atrocity is with the many-mentioned Charmander. If you pick Charmander as your starter, you made the game 1,000 times harder for yourself. All available Pokemon leading up to Brock all get resisted by his Pokemon, and that's just for the first gym. Honestly, for the lack of variety, this has to get a 3 out of 10. I'm sorry, you can't keep your rose-tinted glasses on when covering the Pokemon battles themselves. Can't deny that the battles in general are fun, but the gameplay of them when you really get into the raw data is so damn frustrating. Bind, Wrap, Fire Spin, aka the trapping attacks, are anti-competitive. The sleep and freeze status are so poorly integrated, and luckily I didn't have to experience freeze myself. Sorry, Blue. Confusion is inconsistent, critical hits are tied to speed, giving faster Pokemon an advantage. It's just a mess. But I think the biggest sin here is that certain Pokemon are useless, because their level up moveset is barren of anything. There should be no reason that I should be stuck with 3 normal type moves, not even learning a flying type attack until level 31 with Pidgeot. There should be no reason that I immediately throw a Moonstone on Nidorino. There should be no reason so many Pokemon are not even worth the second thought since they have 0 power in their moves. All I'm saying is that the battles themselves are fine. It's the structure of the battles that give it the score of 4 out of 10. The gameplay outside of battle, not terrible. You don't run into any performance issues unless you search for them on the east shore of Cinnabar Island. The graphics for the console that it's played on, it's fine, I guess. Sound design doesn't get annoying. There are times where you don't know where to go, which I know people complain about that in the modern games, but that's an overcorrection. Nobody ever tells you to double back through Cerulean City to reach Lavender Town via Rock Tunnel. Giving it a 7 here, because I think that's fair when you look at the entirety of the other gameplay. Speaking of sound design, the music is not something you should complain about either. I guess you could say that it gets repetitive with a lot of locations sharing the same themes, but the whole point of an OST is to set the mood of each location. A cave having a theme that gives it the sense of wandering through darkness is what you want. Lavender Town is perfect in this sense because it's so eerie. You can't even deduct any points on it for being 8-bit. Giving it a score of 7 out of 10 is fair since you have to judge it in the capacity of what limitations that it had. And those limitations are shown in full force with the region. Fields, forests, caves, seas, islands, cities, towns. Yes, they are generic, but on the Game Boy, you have to at least give it credit somewhere. It's a decent variety for such an old game. Maybe it shows its age in Fire Red and Leaf Green, but that's not what we're tiering right now. The progression through the region leaves you on your toes. Where do you have to go next? That mystery is always welcomed. Even though they could have done a better job guiding you, you have to give it at least a score of 8 out of 10. I want to give them a better score of the characters though. I can only give them a 6 out of 10 because it's not terrible, but it could be better. None of the characters outside of Oak and Blue really interact at all. The gym leaders are interesting as standalones, but they don't offer much. Giovanni had the best chance at carrying this category, but the disconnect between the mystery of Mewtwo and Rocket gave his character no depth beyond what Rocket actually was doing in this game. That's the problem, the lack of depth. It's the same story for the story. I see the vision, but I have to ask again. Why is this the only form of Pokemon media that did not tie Mewtwo to Team Rocket? That would have been a brilliant plot to uncover, but instead it's a generic catch Pokemon. defeat 8 gym leaders, defeat evil team, and become champion. It's bland. All Rocket is defined by is making money and causing chaos. That's it. The Pokemon Mansion sheds some light on the Mewtwo experiment, but it doesn't go any further. Mewtwo is randomly found in Cerulean Cave nowhere near the Pokemon Mansion, so none of it makes any sense. I can only give it a score of 5 out of 10. This might be weirdly controversial, but just hear me out. I have to give the new additions a score of 10 out of 10. But why? I talked so much shit about this game so far. Why give it a perfect score? Well, that's because it's the first game. It set the foundation of what's to come. While everything is either terrible, battle and gameplay, bland, the plot, or average, the characters, everything it introduced is something noteworthy. It's why Pokemon is the massive franchise it is today, because of Generation 1 being that first step. However, the post-game I have to give a score of 2 out of 10. I want to go even lower, but the idea of catching them all runs true. Other than re-battling the Elite Four, team building, battling your friends, finishing the Pokedex is all you can do. Everything else has been completed, so the lack of post-game is very evident here. And for the difficulty, I have to give it an 8 out of 10. It's not hard if you can grasp it. Really, things are only difficult if you set rules against yourself. The level scaling isn't drastic until you reach the end of the game, but it's the end of the game, so it's supposed to be difficult. And even still, that took some strategy on my end to figure out which Pokemon were needed, which Pokemon I needed currently, and certain move selections. It's all a process that shouldn't be hard if you know what you're doing. That gives Generation 1 a score of 60 out of 100, which, I think that's fair, because the games really didn't age that well, but they still hold true to the franchise's foundation. If you expected me to give it a higher score because, it's the first games and nobody can change that and the new games suck, well, sucks to suck. It's 2026, and the 10th generation is just right around the corner. If you're still being a Gen 1er 30 years after the fact, I don't know what to tell you, other than get the f*** over it. But for the ones who ain't stuck in the past, I think the game can be defined by a great foray into a new idea that can be built upon in so many different ways. By itself, it doesn't really stand out at all. It has such horrible execution on certain mechanics, but those can be updated as time moves on. You can always improve next time, and that's exactly what Generation 1 accomplished. A score of 60 out of 100 stands between them all. And with Pokemon Day this week, we're likely going to get another generation to add to that list. I'm not sure if I should stream the rest of the generations that we're doing in 3010 or not. Do you think that's a good idea? I mean, that way we can discuss them all live. Let me know what you think. We'll really see where each generation lies at the end of all of this, but for now, you can say that Generation 1 is currently number 1. For now.